Welcome back to the Daily Dean. This is your host, Dean, and we're here to talk about communication. Now, communication is used usually in relation to relationships, right? So let's break down that word a little bit. Relationships, first off. A relationship doesn't have to be necessarily romantic. You can have relationships with your family, right? Familial relationships, platonic relationships, authorial relationships, right? People with relationships with people in power, right? The dynamic you may have with people just around you. And that's the definition I'm going to use for relationship. Now, when we talk about communication, it's about voicing your thoughts and your opinions and those things that go on in your head that are not outwardly observable, right? So, communication can take place like in the way you dress, right? You could say like with a big ol' sign right here, I support what's a non-controversial opinion. Um, I support orange juice, right? And you're communicating your opinion that other people may not necessarily know, right? So when you think about those kinds of things, that message is very easily translatable, right? There's no hidden thing in that message that may mean like, oh, is orange juice some kind of uh, 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 anti-Semitism like conspiracy theory? No, of course not. It's just orange juice, right? But like obviously that's a really out there example, but that is probably one of the biggest problems with communication, getting your message across the way you interpreted it to the other person who's translating it, right? Because when you speak, when I'm saying these words right now, they're coming from my head, and as I'm saying them, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But when another person hears it, it might not mean the same thing to them as it did to you. So when you're communicating, instead of thinking about stuff that's like immediately, oh, that's right, you want to be thinking about an end goal, okay? So that's something that means a lot to me, right? If you're communicating solely off the things you're thinking right now, it is very likely you're not going to get anywhere, okay? Now, that may be useful for, I don't know, like ranting, right? Like, this is basically a lot of the Daily Dean rants, right? But, this is now something a little more structured. When you're communicating with somebody and you want something solved, you want a problem solved, it's something that you need a goal for, right? Maybe one problem, one idea, one message you want to get across that you can break down piece by piece and then trickle it, and then extend it to other things, right? So when you have a problem with somebody, now I will give an example, okay? Beans, okay? Beans, this is OG. Beans and I got a problem with the way he's um, treating my computer, right? And I'm saying, Beans, I don't appreciate the way that I don't appreciate the way in how you press the mouse. I'm worried that my mouse is going to break because of how hard you are pressing it. I know that may not be something you're consciously aware of, but I hope you realize that I may value that mouse, and I would appreciate it if you stopped, if you tried pressing a little softer. Now, that example was pretty easy. That was basically actually me just talking off the top of my head, but I was always consciously thinking, what do I want solved? Oh, I want my computer mouse to be treated like, better. Now, that can be applied to a lot of things. Beans is a real sweetheart. He'll listen to you, but other people might not listen to you. And that's pretty tough, right? Sometimes people get a little angry, and that's inevitable, right? You're always going to get angry at some point in your life. That's an impossible emotion to avoid, right? But when you can work through that anger in some shape or form to realize, hey, this person isn't attacking me. I'm not attacking Beans. I love Beans, right? But I can't let my personal emotions regarding my attachment to the computer get in the way of solving the problem, which is my object, my computer mouse right here being mistreated, right? Because that stuff means something to me, and I want to share that with Beans. Now, big takeaways. Communication is hard. Communication is probably a really important skill that we aren't taught in school, which is kind of irritating because it would be great to hear this stuff instead of figuring it out on your own. But when you can communicate your problems with somebody who you value and you need to, because you see them on a daily basis, because they mean a lot to you, because you care about them, etc., etc. This is an invaluable skill, right? You need to be able to voice your feelings to reach a common end goal, right? Because it's you and this person against the problem, right? Whatever that problem may be, but it can't be you versus me, right? Once again, I love beans, and I wouldn't wish any harm on beans. So, if I want to solve this problem, it's not about, like, flicking Bean's hand or, I don't know, cutting off his freaking limbs or something, right? It's about ensuring that Beans understands where I'm coming from, and then hearing Beans' voice, right? I mean, I can't, like, actually communicate with Beans, right? But, like, you get the point. Remember that there's always another person who lives as complex a life as you are and are right now. So, when you're trying to communicate with somebody, keep that in mind and always be working towards some kind of greater purpose. So, thank you.